Oh, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever the fuck you are. What is up, y'all? Welcome back. This is the 48 Laws of Power discussion series, a book by Robert Greene. Brilliant gentleman, if I don't say so myself. We are now officially beyond the halfway point. We are into Law 25. What's up, chat? Catch Ninja. I know I saw Clairview leave a message yesterday saying she was setting a alarm for this stream. I assure you it's not going anywhere. I'm going to record it, put it up on the channel. So whether you're here or not, irrelevant. But would rather you be here anyway. Castro, what's up, my dude? Frogget, glad you could make it. Ain't seen you in a bit. Hi, Dizzle. Howdy, howdy. Hey, everybody. I gotta do this as replay crew. Have fun reading chapter all. I mean, sorry you can't make this one. This one seems like it's gonna be a real important one to the scenario here. First Shot by Dead Naked Brother. Good to see you. Glad you're alive with clothes on. Maybe not pants, but at least, I mean, you don't need pants to be on the internet. So I'm very, very excited to get into this one, y'all. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been spent the morning with it, and because recreating yourself is something that we're all constantly doing, I feel like everyone is adapting who they are to their surroundings on a very regular basis. And I feel like this concept is something that we do almost so naturally that we don't actually even realize we're doing it most of the time. Because what is recreating yourself? It is changing who you are to fit in, so to speak. This is why we recreate ourselves, because we don't fit as we are. So we shave things, we adjust, we may even self censor on occasion to go ahead and fit in with those around us. But that's not a path to power, in my opinion. when it comes to recreating yourself in the eyes of building power, you really have to go a little over the top. Y'all ready for this? Like, did y'all bring your old selves? Shout out in the chat. Hit that like button if you brought your old self here with a mentality of being able to recreate that self to something even more. Oh shit. I didn't even do the proper introductions. My bad. That's better. That's much better. All right, y'all. Law 25. Recreate yourself. Judgment. Do not accept the roles that society foists on you. And yes, I thought this was a typo at first too, and I'm like, foists? You're going to have to look that word up. But it's a real word. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. This shit's important. I'm not even kidding you. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Incorporate dramatic devices into your public gestures and actions. Your power will be enhanced and your character will seem larger than life. Make yourself a spectacle, y'all. Seems very telling. Observance of the law, Part 1. Julius Caesar made his first significant mark on Roman society in 65 BC when he assumed the post of aedile, the official in charge of grain distribution and public games. He began his entrance into the public eye by organizing a series of carefully crafted and well-timed spectacles, wild beast hunts, extravagant gladiator shows, theatrical contests. On several occasions, he paid for these spectacles out of his own pocket. To the common man, Julius Caesar became indelibly associated with these much-loved events. As he slowly rose to attain the position of consul, his popularity among the masses served as a foundation of his power. He had created an image of himself as a great public showman. And and what and what do the public showmen of today do? Because we don't do the role of aedile, that's not a thing. We do the role of internet influencer. We do thoughts online nowadays. If you really want to reach people, you reach out as far as you can, and this is that personified. But not all are going to rise to the top. Not all are going to be publicly popular. But you have to know your audience, and you have to know what sphere you're reaching for. The man who intends to make his fortune in this ancient capital of the world, Rome, must be a chameleon, susceptible of reflecting the colors of the atmosphere that surrounds him. A Proteus apt to assume every form, every shape. He must be supple, flexible, insinuating, close, inscrutable, often base, sometimes sincere, sometimes perfidious, always concealing a part of his knowledge, indulging in but one tone of voice, patient, a perfect master of his own countenance, as cold as ice when any other man would be all fire. And if unfortunately he is not religious at heart, a very common occurrence for a soul possessing the above requisites, he must have religion in his mind. That is to say, on his face, on his lips, in his manners, he must suffer quietly. If he be an honest man, the necessity of knowing himself an arrant hypocrite. The man whose soul would loathe such a life should leave Rome and seek his fortune elsewhere. I do not know whether I am praising or excusing myself, but of all those qualities I possessed but one, namely flexibility. The Memoirs of Giovanni Casanova, and that does sound a bit like how I feel about a lot of things. Like it's easy for me to understand and advise a whole bunch of shit that I don't namely prescribe myself to as well. And when I try to interpret the 48 laws of power, I know that there's a very slim subset of the 48 laws that actually is applicable to me in my capacity. So I spend a lot of time trying to theorize the rest of these based on my understanding of the interactions. I don't possess a lot of this shit myself, but recreating myself is something I have been doing for my entire life. And once upon a time, I was a very, very different person than I am today. And a lot of that had to do with my understandings of what I thought were values and where I adjusted my positions to based on where I started. Anywho, I thought this was fun because in order to be super influential, I'm fairly certain what my man Casanova here is saying is you have to be able to appeal to everyone's sensibilities. Go Hagen. TGIF. Buenos dias, mi amigo. I don't know. Anyone else like had a significant shift over their lifespan? I feel like most people do. I feel like when you're young and stupid, you have a very different position based on like once you've gone through X number of shit, you look back on that person you were and it's like, oh man, if I could talk about that guy, it would be so embarrassing. Or that girl, I mean, I don't mean to be a sexist pig, but you know what I mean? Like that person you were years ago is not the person you are today. And it's fun to think about like how you managed to go down the very specific path you did that led you to where you are. Because life is a sequence of choices that you make, and every single one of them serves to shape the outcome. I just think it's very interesting, the truth of that. Anyway, let's get back to Julius Caesar and what he was up to, because he's coming to power in Rome. In 49 BC, Rome was on the brink of a civil war between rival leaders, Caesar and Pompey. At the height of tension, Caesar, an addict of the stage, attended a theatrical performance and afterward, lost in thought, he wandered in the darkness back to his campaign at the Rubicon, the river that divides Italy from Gaul, where he had been campaigning. To march his army back into Italy across the Rubicon would mean the beginning of a war with Pompey. Anyone a student of history? No. Uh, I mean, 25 years ago? How about 5 years ago? How about 5 months ago? You are, but you aren't. Think about it a little harder if you think you're actually the same person you were any number of years ago. Like, the recreation is just constant. There's always adaptation going on. Before his staff, Caesar argued both sides, forming the opinions like an actor on stage, a precursor of Hamlet. Finally, to put his soliloquy to an end, he pointed to a seemingly innocent apparition at the edge of the river, a very tall soldier blasting a call on a trumpet, then going across a bridge over the Rubicon, and pronounced, "Let us accept this as a sign from the gods and follow where they beckon. In vengeance on our double-dealing enemies, the die is cast." All of this he spoke portentously and dramatically, gesturing toward the river and looking his generals in the eye. He knew that these generals were uncertain in their support, but his oratory overwhelmed them with a sense of the drama of the moment and of the need to seize the time. A more prosaic speech would never have had the same effect. And that right there is kind of key to the full explanation of this is he made a really big spectacle rather than just speaking as a matter of this is what I think we should do. He made a very dramatic performance of what he thought and instilled in them a sense of urgency. And urgency tends to overwhelm reasonability in a lot of cases. So, like, even something that was way more explanatory would have had far less impact. The generals rallied to his cause. Caesar and his army crossed the Rubicon and by the following year had vanquished Pompey, making Caesar dictator of Rome. Yep, move now. Don't hesitate. In warfare, um, pardon me, y'all, we are now experiencing minor technical. Okay, anywho, sorry about that. In warfare, Caesar always played the leading man with gusto. He was as skilled a horseman as any of his soldiers and took pride in outdoing them in feats of bravery and endurance. He entered battle astride the strongest mount, so that his soldiers would see him in the thick of battle, urging them on, always positioning himself in the center, a godlike symbol of power and a model for them to follow. Okay. Of all the armies in Rome, Caesar's was the most devoted and loyal. Yeah, that's historically accurate. His soldiers, like the common people who had attended his entertainments, had come to identify with him and with his cause. And that right there is the key to exactly um, how he got to the point he did. Like he got his soldiers to truly believe in him rather than just like I work for you. He got their loyalty. After the defeat of Pompey, the entertainments grew in scale. Nothing like them had ever been seen in Rome. The chariot races became more spectacular, the gladiator fights more dramatic, as Caesar staged fights to the death among the Roman nobility. Holy shit, that's a bad idea. He organized enormous mock naval battles on an artificial lake. Plays were performed in every Roman ward. A giant new theater was built that sloped dramatically down the Tarpeian Rock. Crowds from all over the empire flocked to these events. The roads to Rome lined the roads to Rome, mind you, that were still good when Rome collapsed, lined with visitors' tents, and in 45 BC, timing his entry into the city for maximum effect, and surprise, Caesar brought Cleopatra back to Rome after his Egyptian campaign and had staged even more extravagant public spectacles. Okay, well, those of you who are students of history know exactly how Caesar bringing Cleopatra back to Rome actually went. But Rome was already, like, I mean, height of power at that time. We're starting an infighting backslide at this point. I'm not here to do a Roman history lesson, but that was a terrible idea on his part. But Caesar did a lot of shit that was really fucking stupid. These events were more than devices to divert the masses. They dramatically enhanced the public's sense of Caesar's character and made him seem larger than life. Inflating yourself. Caesar was the master of his public image, of which he was forever aware. When he appeared before crowds, he wore the most spectacular purple robes. He would be upstaged by no one. He was notoriously vain about his appearance. It was said that one reason he enjoyed being honored by the Senate and people was that on these occasions he could wear a laurel wreath hiding his baldness. Okay. I mean, talk about the arrogance and the narcissism on this guy. Just for a second. There is such a thing as being drunk off your own power. And it's funny because this is considered observance of the law, part one. Does anybody know the short story of Julius Caesar at all? Caesar was a masterful orator. He knew how to say a lot by saying a little. That's law 4. Intuited the moment to end a speech for maximum effect. I mean, there's at least 2 or 3 laws that covers. He never failed to incorporate a surprise into his public appearances. A startling announcement would heighten their drama. He is the quintessential politician. That's funny. I'm glad you find that interesting. Immensely popular among the Roman people, Caesar was hated and feared by his rival. On the Ides of March, March 15th, in the year 44 BC, a group of conspirators, led by Brutus and Cassius, surrounded him in the Senate and stabbed him to death. Oh shit, we just went there. Stabbed him to die. Even dying, however, He kept his sense of drama, drawing the top of his gown over his face. He let go of the cloth's lower part so that it draped his legs, allowing him to die covered in decent. According to the Roman historian Suetonius, his final words to his old friend Brutus was about who was about to deliver a second blow were in Greek, as if rehearsed for the end of a play. E tu Brute, aka you too, my child. Yeah, that happened. It's funny that that went down because there's an interpretation here. And it is interesting that the guy who was most beloved by the people was hated and feared by his rivals. And it's not really that interesting. It's not really that surprising that the guy who has the support of everyone below him would be the one who everyone who is supposed to be somewhat equal to him would be the most terrified of. I mean, he was declared emperor of Rome. That's a big title, unequaled title. That's going to make everybody jealous. When you become unrivaled and you place yourself right up there alongside God, everyone's going to resent you. Interpretation. The Roman theater was an event for the masses, attended by crowds unimaginable today. Packed into enormous auditoriums, the audience would be amused by raucous comedy or moved by high tragedy. Theater seemed to contain the essence of life in its concentrated dramatic form. Like a religious ritual, it had a powerful, instant appeal to the common man. And so it does. And so it kind of still does today, although I'm not gonna lie to you, like the value of performance theater has been significantly watered down by the fact that any idiot with a camera and microphone can be a celebrity to the masses. And if you look at the people who actually hit it big, like there's not inherently anything special today. I mean that there is, but what has become the special thing today has changed dramatically from what it was then, or even what most of us understood it as growing up. And it's kind of weird. I don't know. Caesar set the ideal for all leaders and people of power. Like him, you must learn to enlarge your actions through dramatic technique, such as surprise, suspense, the creation of sympathy, and symbolic identification. Also, like him, you must be constantly aware of your audience, of what will please them and what will bore them. You must arrange to place yourself at the center, to command attention, and never to be upstaged at any cost. Okay, well, I'm not the best showman. I'm not the most popular yet. Who knows? Maybe one day. Yeah, no risk, no reward. I mean, the people who end up at the center of everything tend to be unilaterally focused on that one thing. And it tends to give them a very, very narrow scope on everything, which is how you end up getting stabbed to death by everyone who is your rival. And were they psychopaths? Maniacs. Were they maniacs? They were all rivals and they were all jealous and they were all very, very concerned that Caesar was going to destroy Rome. Turns out, not the case, but you put yourself in their position and you're talking about a guy with not only unlimited power and authority, but all the power and authority that you used to think you had has now been removed to you, and you've got kind of a dictatorship going on. Are they maniacs or are they freedom fighters? It's tough to tell because Rome didn't fall apart just yet. Took a little while longer. But yeah, Caesar went from being an aedile to being the emperor of Rome, rising through the ranks through military might and recreating himself to always appear bigger and more powerful than he is, more influential. I mean, I'm trying to think of some modern examples of this. I'm getting the former president of the United States coming to mind, Mr. Donald J. Trump. I'm getting Mr. Beast, honestly, the YouTuber sensation comes to mind. Taylor Swift actually comes to mind, which is disgusting enough. But there are just, in modern times, the concept of like power and influence on the masses comes from really fucking weird places. It comes from places of power that you wouldn't historically think have power, like weird ass celebrities, social media influencers. Uh, they're the ones who are carrying the banners of power today with the common people. Like, do they actually have influence other than to serve people who have actual power? I'm not entirely certain, but like it's weird how certain people come into popularity. Diddy, I mean, uh, what goes up must come down. Ah, yes. That actually makes look at Diddy makes sense. Uh, gone up, come down. Been basically embarrassed by his performance. There's a lot of that. But I mean, if you look at like a Mr. Beast, I mean, Mr. Beast is today one of the most well-known celebrities on the planet. And I don't think he's been on TV but a couple of times. He does his thing completely online, and it's wildly, absurdly successful. And he started off as basically a nobody. Elon Musk is another dude who started off as basically a nobody. He got himself into a good position with a good business that ended up selling out and ended up creating a whole bunch of other shit. Worked himself into being the richest man in the world for like 5 minutes. Bought Twitter and lost his mind. I mean, these are the powerful, influential people of our time right now to society. And it's fascinating how a lot of them got there because, like, not a lot of the people, like, a lot of people who are actually influential were born into their powerful positions. The banking cartel family members and such people. Not going to get too deep into that. They're actually influential, but having influence over the people, very important. Anywho, I'm rambling now. Time to get into observance of the law, part two. Hold on, let me. In the year 1831, a woman named Aurore Dupin Dudevant left her husband and family in the provinces and moved to Paris. Oh, France. Gay. She wanted to be a writer. Marriage, she felt, was worse than prison, so she was a feminist. For it left her neither the time nor the freedom to pursue her passion. So she was a radical feminist in 1831, anyway. In Paris, she would establish her independence and make her living by writing. Soon after Dudevant arrived in the capital, however, she had to confront certain harsh realities. To have any degree of freedom in Paris, you had to have money. Ha! Imagine money, freedom, money. Like wealth is power. Dumbass. For a woman, money could only come through marriage or prostitution. No woman had ever come close to making a living by writing. Women wrote as a hobby, supported by their husbands or by an inheritance. In fact, when Dudevant first showed her writing to an editor, he told her, "You should make babies, madame, not literature." Oh my god, get right. Ah, beautifully. Clearly, Dudevant had come to Paris to attempt the impossible. Yeah, you did. In the end, though, She came up with a strategy to do what no woman had ever done, a strategy to recreate herself completely. Okay. Forging a public image of her own making. Women writers before her had been forced into a ready-made role, that of the second-rate artist who wrote mostly for other women. Dudevant decided that if she had to play a role, she would turn the game around. She would play the part of a man. Okay. I'm pretty sure it was safe advice. But here we have what seems to be something very close to the first recorded evidence that I know of a trans author. And there are earlier cases of people writing under pen names, but usually the ones that I'm aware of were men writing under, because this is 1831. I mean, the Federalist Papers were all penned under pseudonyms by the founding fathers because the reason if they put their actual names on them. But this is a little bit later in France. A woman is going to assume the role of a man and represent herself as such. So we got a trans author here. Mr. Mousy Files has to be my favorite Mousin, because I guarantee you I'm not Mr. Mousy Files as Darf. I'm Small Mousy Starf. Hi Mousin. Hey Bijou. It was true in the 1800s and it is something today. I mean, there seems to be a case to be made for it. In 1832, a publisher accepted Dudevant's first major novel, Indiana. She had chosen to publish it under a pseudonym, George Sand, and all of Paris assumed this impressive new writer was male. Ooh my. Dudevant sometimes wore men's clothes before creating George Sand. She had always found men's shirts and riding breeches more comfortable. And even back in the 1800s, men's clothes were built for function and women's clothes were built for form and fashion. Like women's clothes have always been kind of uh less conductive to productivity. So I mean, I can't even hate on women for wearing men's clothes because our clothes are built for doing shit. And if you want to go do some shit, you're gonna need something better than what they make for women most of the time. Yep, just more comfortable. That's a hard fact. And Dudevant knew this even back in the 1830s, so that seems reasonable. Now, as a public figure, she exaggerated the image. She added long men's coats, gray hats, heavy boots, and dandyish cravats to her wardrobe. She smoked cigars and in conversation expressed herself like a man, unafraid to dominate the conversation or to use a saucy word. So this bitch was trans before trans was even a thing. She was just like straight up assuming the role of a man. She was culturally appropriating my people. Fuck out of here. Thank God for hygiene improvements since the 18th century. Amen to that, brother. This strange male female writer fascinated the public. And unlike other women writers, Sand found herself accepted. No, her name was fucking Dudavant. Fuck out of here. Sand found herself accepted into the clique of male artists. She drank and smoked with them, so whiskey and cigars, even carried on affairs with the most famous artists of Europe, Musée, Liszt, Chopin. It was she who did the wooing and also the abandoning. She moved on at her discretion. So, yeah, if she's a man, no shit. Trans ass bitch. Those who knew Sand well understood that her male persona protected her from the public's prying eyes. Out in the world, she enjoyed playing the part to the extreme. In private, she remained herself. She also realized that the character of George Sand could grow stale or predictable. And to avoid this, she would every now and then dramatically alter the character she had created. Instead of conducting affairs with famous men, she would begin meddling in politics, leading demonstrations, inspiring student rebellions. Oh, damn, not only is she a man, she's a communist. What the shit? Yeah, but bet you the bitch didn't think she was a man. No, she definitely did not. It appears that she knew she was a woman, but she enjoyed like overly asserting her male-ish dominance in public, but in private, like she knew she was Aurora. Actually, in the fish world, the men are the pretty fish, and they have to convince the lady fish they are the best mates. That's the same thing in the bird world, Mousy. And do you know why? In the bird and fish world, the men are the pretty ones. It's not just to attract mates, but it is also to attract predators. They are the defenders of their ladies. So in the bird world and in the fish world, the males are the beautiful people because they draw the attention both from the good side and the bad side, and they're responsible for both roles of the demonstrating and presenting and being the most beautiful for the females, but also to catch the most attention of predators so that the females are able to flee and escape, thus perpetuating the species. It's a beautiful balance. Good afternoon, Lady Autumn Sky. Very, very good to see you. I mean, unfortunately, I see a lot of people that have been peacocking to an almost extreme in the male of our species, and that's not how our species works. I don't mind an assertive girl who's submissive in bed. I mean, that's how they catch you. That's a trap, Go Hagen. That is. I think you might have a little even more experience than me with that, and I know that's a trap. I've seen some fish and birds that can dance like crazy. Like, don't start getting into birds. You think a guy in makeup is hot? That's gross. This is not hot. This is gross. You might just be a weirdo, but everybody is entitled to their own weird shit. Like, no one would dictate to her the limits of the character she had created long after she died and after most people had stopped reading her novels. The larger than life theatricality of that character has continued to fascinate and inspire. So I don't know anything about George Sand. I didn't know anything about George Sand until just now, anyway. Does anybody ever heard of George Sand? My girl sent me pics of them Thai lady boys. Are they hot? No. No. I agree with Gohagan. No kink shaming. I'm not kink shaming as long as you don't try to drag me into it. I have nothing to fucking do with it. I'm good. Yep. Fuck no is my agreement. Also, I have groups of hummingbirds. Also, yeah, I mean, hummingbirds are one of those species like peacocks, like cardinals, like robins. I mean, the males are just blue jays. The males are just more vibrant, more pretty. Like birds are great for that. I do prefer my ladies having been born with vagines. Boys have penis, girls have vagine. And if you are from India, show Bob and vagine. Shout out to you, my Indian folk, who I have 0% in my audience. I have not. I have a mild interest in no more. So does anybody want to get into Miss Duvant slash Mr. Sand? Holy shit. Greetings. Not sure we've met. Uh, well, T3, good to see you around here. It has been a long time. Uh, Dropping in to give a like, say hi, and run away to do all the human things. Yeah, you did a long ass stream. Thanks for helping me get myself in the mind state to prep for what I had to do for mine. Uh, that was great. We played poker not long. Oh, Devos or CWO because I was playing poker really shit faced wasted in both of those places not that long ago, and I remember. Oh, Miss Luck. No, you were at Devos. Devos game that ended up going on for 6 fucking hours that night. Okay, I'm 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 good. I'm getting to know everybody. Thank you for helping me recreate myself to know exactly who all is around. Yeah, you played a good game. I remember that. So, pardon me. I'd be a little wasted sometimes. Uh, just gonna throw that out there. Man, it is interesting the groups that show up right near the end of this. Uh, Hold on, is everybody settled in? Uh, I do kind of want to get into the interpretation on this, but we got people in the chat that aren't usually in the chat, new people to the chat, and people who haven't been here for a while. Like, I just kind of want to let this shit rock for a second. One of these days, I'm gonna have to like edit down some of these just for the content value and make little clips. Uh, I don't qualify you as new anymore. You've been here a few times now. You're fairly regular. And you did tell me yesterday that you would be here today when we were watching Div stream last night. Take care, Shell. Good to see you. Really was. Yes. Miss Luck is very new to the classroom, basically environment that I have here. It's very different than Devo's place because Devo's is where we all get high as shit, and Hideous is where we all get high and go over like philosophical content. I'm pretty sure everybody's subscribed, but if you're not subscribed and you're catching this at any point in time, whether you be on replay or what, if you could go ahead and subscribe, that'd be dope. Yeah, no, first shot's already like been declared. Yeah, see? I mean, if Cat Ninja declares you part of the crew, you're part of the ship. Fuck out of here. Let's jump into the interpretation. I really want to get into it. Throughout Sand's public life, acquaintances and other artists who spent time in her company had the feeling they were in the presence of a man. So she had the bro vibes. But in her journals and to her closest friends, such as Gustave Flaubert, that's French for flaming Homo sapien, she confessed that she had no desire to be a man. Okay, so she was just acting, but was playing a part for public consumption. What she really wanted was the power to determine her own character. So she really wanted that actual feminist empowerment because she wanted to be independent. There is a stream Darth did. I embarrass myself. It's great. Oh, you did not embarrass yourself on Thanksgiving. You were just high. You were great. That stream was about the after dinner roundtable, so it was actually the best stream I've done in a while. It had a lot of interaction. A lot more than the 48 Laws of Power ever seemed to get. Just saying. But no, we're talking about the trans author here who never actually wanted to be a man. She was playing the part for public consumption because she wanted to be free. She refused the limits her society would have set on her. She did not attain her power, however, by being herself. Instead, she created a persona that she could constantly adapt to her own desires, a persona that attracted attention and gave her presence. There we go. Like, she really did want to just be free of constraints, which is fine because she wasn't depending on anyone else to actually like fund or pay for that or support that. Like, she didn't want to be married and dependent on a husband, and she did not want to be a hooker, so she became a man to try to be successful in a man's world. A lot of YouTubers create personas. You're right. Most of the popular YouTubers I see seem to be acting. They don't seem to be authentic. I know a lot of people that are mildly popular, like, I mean, the smallest of small YouTubers, less than 10,000, less than 20,000 subs. They all seem to be authentic. I see people up to 100,000 subs that are semi-authentic. It's very hard when you see people with 1 million plus subs. It's like, if this is not scripted, then I'm retarded, and I'm not that. I'm never that. Darth don't know how to act. You're goddamn right. I, to the extent that I know how to act, I can do so in very, very limited volume. And usually my act is very easy to shatter by just testing it a little bit because I'm not a bullshitter. I have a hard time. I might go over the top sometimes, but there's usually mostly just honesty in my words, and it's kind of a problem for me. It's good to see you, Shalamania. Thank you for the thank you for the like update in the reality of Darth Hideous. Understand this. The world wants to assign you a role in life, and once you accept that role, you are doomed. Your power is limited to the tiny amount allotted to the role you have selected or have been forced to assume. An actor, on the other hand, plays many roles. Enjoy that protein power, and if it is beyond you, at least forge a new identity, one of your own making, one that has no boundaries assigned to it by an envious and resentful world. This act of defiance is Promethean. It makes you responsible for your own creation. And uh, there is a very clear extent that you can create the person you want to be. If you are not that person, you can acquire skills. You can uh, acquire experience in interacting with people if that's not one of your strongest suits. I remember once upon a time, I really wasn't good at talking to people. I used to be relatively shy and reserved and concerned because, for the most part, most people were not people I could relate to. So I feared that they could not relate to me. And for the most part, that's still true. A lot of people I do not relate to. But rather than just like not say anything, I decided to just throw caution to the wind and start saying the shit that was on my mind. It started as an online persona, and then I realized that it was comfortable as an online persona because it's who I was, and it became who, like, I became that thing in real life because that's who I am, and it served me very well since then. Like, that was quite some time ago, and I've been growing into it ever since, but fuck. So much better to just embrace who you are. I mean, I know this says to an extreme, but if you don't lust for the top of power, you don't need to go all out like this. There there are levels to this shit. Your new identity will protect you from the world precisely because it is not you. It is a costume you put on and take off. You need not take it personally. Ooh, that's an interesting concept. And your new identity sets you apart, gives you theatrical presence. Those in the back rows can see you and hear you. Those in the front rows marvel at your audacity. Ah. If you are playing a character, all things heaped upon that character are not things that you need take personally because that character is not you. If you are playing a role and all the hate heaped on that role is just heaped on that role. This kind of reminds me of a character in a series that I watched. A young gentleman by the name of Jack Gleason, who many of you may know, played King Joffrey in Game of Thrones. And there was a mountain and mountain and mountain of shit heaped on that character because he was an awful character. Like, I mean, he was designed to be uh, the most hateable character in that series. And the young man that played that did a great job of like disassociating himself from that character because the just pure animosity and hatred for that character on social media. And he's just a young dude. Like I think Jack Gleason at the time was like 16 or 15 when he played the role of Joffrey in Game of Thrones. And that's really key. Like if you're actually like trying to present yourself, like say you're putting on your work face because you're not at home, you're not with your homies on the internet. You're going to work in the real world and you got to put on your work face and you got to interact with people in a way. Yeah, I agree, Shadowmania. I I was a huge Game of Thrones fan, so uh, there were a lot of very significant talents in that show, and it's a shame that the executives did what they did to it. Might have ruined a few careers, might have made a few. Anywho, yeah, but if you're like stepping out into the world that you have to deal with people on stage, you really can't take the things that like happen in those interactions super close to heart if you're playing a role. Like, say you gotta be the firing manager at a business. This is your job, and you have to let some people go. And you do, and they heap a whole mess of shit on you because you had to be the messenger. You can't take that personally. That was your role that you were playing. You had to let these people move on because the company no longer needs you. Like that wasn't your decision. That was something that was handed down to you to execute. So when they heap a whole mess of shit on you because they're losing their minds, they're pissed off about it. Like you can't go ahead and take that personally. That's just ridiculous. And some people actually get in that position where it's like they have this responsibility that they have to enact and they can't handle the like backlash of it. This is how people end up doing apology tours and backpedaling and all types of shit. Yeah, don't take anything personally. The people are blank. Sorry, I cannot get my mind into this. Have a nice day. You're fine, Miss Look. Like I said, this is not for everybody. My content's a very, very unique niche group. And to the people who do appreciate it, I love having them there, but I know this is not for everybody. And I know the vast majority of people will never be interested in this, which is why I will never be the pinnacle of power that this book aspires people to be. But I understand my role in that dynamic, and that's why I love doing what I do. Take care. Uh, yeah, I mean, most people do come for the chat. Like, some people do come for the content. A lot of people just come to support me because they think I'm cool. Mostly because I'm cool everywhere else. I'm here for the high level knowledge. Well, I appreciate that, Shalomania. We are all the apostles. They're sitting in swings. My savior for a set of new. I feel like that's a lyric, Go Hagen, and I feel like you have songs that they sound familiar, but I don't quite recognize them. My mate, Kat and Darth are here. Super cool. I'm here for all of y'all. But mostly I'm here because I find this shit fascinating in my own right, and I think people should at least have the chance to hear it. Like whether they want to know or not, like the information should be out there. And I know there's like a whole shitload of channels that have just like bootlegged the audiobook and posted it, and that's cool, but I actually wanted to put my own like 2 cents in and make it my own damn content. So I figured I'd do a discussion series about it. God, one of these days it'll be over. One Modest Mouse bankrupt on selling. Uh, I almost think you mean that. I mean, do not people talk in society of a man being a great actor? Do not they do not mean by that that he feels, but that he excels in simulating, though he feels nothing. Denise Diderot. All right, let's get into it. The keys to power. The character you seem to have been born with is not necessarily who you are. Beyond the characteristics you have inherited, your parents, your friends, and your peers have helped to shape your personality. The Promethean task of the powerful is to take control of the process. Okay, this is a highlightable portion. Take control of the process to stop allowing others that ability to limit and mold them. Remake yourself into a character of power. Working on yourself like clay should be one of your greatest and most pleasurable life tasks. It makes you, in essence, an artist in creating yourself. Well, I mean, when it comes to who you're going to be, you have two choices. You can make yourself, or you can let the world make you. Most people let the world make them. Okay. Modest Mouse. Okay. I will check it out. I don't know the tune because I've only ever listened to like two or three Modest Mouse songs in my life. You were told there would be hors d'oeuvres. Well, you're lucky that I can speak French language because when I first looked at that, I didn't realize you were speaking Surrender Monkey. Oh shit. It's 20 after, so that means it's 4:20 somewhere in the 24 time zones of the universe. Oh shit, that's empty. Oh, Frog ate all the hors d'oeuvres. I'm gonna have to consult the caterer. This has been a. I didn't expect some of the people who showed up here to be here. This is the noon show on Fridays, which usually doesn't draw the type of audience that the 8 p.m. show draws. So I was surprised to see people that I don't normally see. But anyway, like, anyone have any thoughts about the art of constantly molding themselves and creating themselves to be their best self? Like, this is that hippie kind of bullshit right here, but it is fundamentally very true because you have to form your mindset to who you are and constantly like build yourself to be that person you want to be. Otherwise, other people are going to decide who you're going to be, and for most people, that's a miserable existence. Most of the people around me, I don't think suffer from this actual issue. Most people don't let everyone else make them. Most people make themselves. I'm glad to be surrounded by a bunch of independent thinkers. All the people you knew were the actors. All the people you knew were the actors. This line is what made. Ah, gotcha. Because, yeah, I mean, that's what most people actually do know. So that's a good song. I'm gonna have to look that up. Modest Mouse. Let me hold up and fucking go ahead and dump that into another browser tab real quick so that I may have seized upon it. Okay, we're good. Now, this lyric I do know because I am whatever you say I am. If I wasn't, then why would I say I am? In the paper, the news every day I am. YouTube won't even play my jam. Call it what you will, but I left this up from when I went to bed. I woke up 10 minutes before it started. Ah, that's interesting. That, I mean, there might be a whole lot to be said about that. Or maybe that was just dumb luck. Who knows? I'm glad you made it in regardless. In fact, the idea of self creation comes from the world of art. For thousands of years, only kings and the highest courtiers had the freedom to shape their public image and determine their own identity. Similarly, only kings and the wealthiest lords could contemplate their own image in art and consciously alter it. The rest of mankind played the limited role that society demanded of them and had little self consciousness. The peasants, the servants, the people who were at the bottom of society in feudalism and monarchism and all that bullshit, they had no chance of self-determination. I mean, it really wasn't until this country, the United States of America, was founded that people in general had any chance or right of self-determinatism and the ability to transcend the caste system in mass. There were cases of it throughout history long before America, but they were rare, and that's why they're historically recorded. It was only after the founding of the idea of freedom and capitalism and open markets that we actually got to even understand the concept. Yeah, manifest destiny, self determinatism. These are all concepts that are very dependent on the freedom to decide what you're going to do, which is why I'm so fearful about like the way society seems to be trending because we seem to be still rare today in America per capita. I mean, it used to be less rare per capita. It's becoming more rare again as we become more and more authoritarian, totalitarian, and we begin breaking the classes and reinstituting the caste system of the haves and have-nots. But it wasn't always this way. Uh, Per capita based on means, like there were always the haves and the have-nots. There will always be that. But once upon a time, the have-nots had more. So they had less. They were not really the have-nots, they were the have less. And they were still so comfortable and wealthy that, like, I mean, they didn't give a fuck about any of this shit. Everybody was way too prosperous. They're trying to destroy prosperity so that they can reinstitute the caste system of only the elites prosper now. That is happening right before our eyes. This is part of why I think the 48 Laws of Power is actually an important thing to talk about because they're trying to go back to feudalism and monarchism. And I mean, most of us probably won't make it out of like the collapse of the free society alive, but to those who do, there will be a reinstitution of power at some point, and I expect it to look a lot more like this than the shit you're used to. But we'll not. Who knows? Who knows? Chaos is fucking very unpredictable. It could be a whole nothing burger, and this should be a giant waste of time. Although it's not. This is not a waste of time because understanding these concepts, it's helpful for me. And if one other person enjoys it, then it was worth it to me to share it. And if two other people enjoy it, then I just get exponential value out of it. These things average like 40 or 50 views. Hopefully one day people will look back and think like, hey, that's actually something really worth looking into, and this will go viral in 2 years, long after I'm done doing it. Yeah, 65% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and people are paying 60% of their wages in taxes, even though they don't know it. Like, even the average people who are paying like little to no taxes are paying most of their wealth in taxes because of inflation, because of asset reduction. Like there's a whole mess here. I do not really want to go into a giant political rant while I'm doing the 48 Laws of Power stream. I could get into this at some other point. I might need a little time to prepare that stream, but I have been thinking of doing something very akin to the news, only specifically a society collapse tracker, which only tracks news that is indicative of the collapse of Western society. That might, uh, I have to actually do some thinking about that. That's just a hypothesis that's gone through my head. Not something I really ever wanted to do as a stream. Probably something I will do on Rumble only for obvious reasons, but it might be interesting to just like go back through to 1776, the formation of America, and go through the history of like different things that happened that caused schisms and rifts in the idea of the original founding fathers' uh, formation of what this country should be, and the different turnings that we've gone through so far. But that might be fun. Just I've tracked the collapse of America back quite a ways, so it started a long time before any of us were ever born, and I might just need to go over it as a timeline. But for now, let's finish this shit. Like, I'll get out of here and contemplate that idea. A shift, hold on. Yeah, a shift in this condition can be detected in Velázquez's painting Las Meninas, made in 1656. The artist appears at the left of the canvas, standing before a painting that he is in the process of creating, but that has its back to us. We cannot see it. Beside him stands a princess, her attendants, and one of the court dwarves, all watching him work. The people posing for the painting are not directly visible, but we can see them in tiny reflections in a mirror on the back wall. The King and Queen of Spain, who must be sitting somewhere in the foreground outside the picture. The painting represents a dramatic change in the dynamics of power and the ability to determine one's own position in society. For Velasquez, the artist is far more prominently positioned than the king and queen. In a sense, he is more powerful than they are, since he is clearly the one controlling the image, their image. Velasquez no longer saw himself as the slavish, dependent artist. He had remade himself into a man of power, and indeed the first people other than aristocrats to play openly with their image in Western society were artists and writers, and later on, dandies and bohemians. Okay, I'm not super familiar with British culture, but I'm pretty sure dandies and bohemians are a British thing, and I need to look into that more. But yeah, artists and writers tended to become the first level of prominent celebrity after we basically did away with the concept of aristocracy in the West. Or largely with the power of aristocracy in the West. Today, the concept of self creation has slow filtered down to the rest of society and has become an ideal to aspire to. Like Velasquez, you must demand for yourself the power to determine your position in the painting and to create your own image because nobody's going to elevate you to a powerful position in modern society. You have to make your own powerful position unless you're born into some bullshit. But you have the power now that you can actually like create your own position, which is actually super dope because that's not something that was afforded to us for thousands and thousands and thousands of years before right now. So, for everyone who seems to feel like they're powerless, understand you have more power than you would have ever imagined possible were you born at any other time in human history. It is solely upon you to embrace to what extent you want to see that power through to, or attempt to anyway, because not all who seek and aspire to power will succeed, but these things happen. The first step in the process of self creation is self consciousness. Being aware of yourself as an actor and taking control of your appearance and emotions. As Diderot said, the bad actor is the one who is always sincere. Ah, shit. Well, I'm really out of here with the whole bad actor. Like, I'm always passing sincere, even when I'm wrong. That's problematic. A man who dresses elegantly and fashionably, but that was not necessarily of aristocratic origin. He exaggerates his manners, including the way he stands and moves, and the way he speaks. He promotes himself. That's the actor. Well, still today, power is taken and held through force is just not the only way now to attain it. No, it's not, but it's the most reliable and simplest way to take power is through force. It's not the most dependable way long term. To create power like Caesar did through creation of loyalty and a following, that is that is the way like to actually appeal to people, the common people. That is like I think the strongest form of power is to have loyalty and support, but there are a lot of wise leaders throughout the time that said that they would rather be feared than loved. So, what is the inspiration of loyalty if not love? And what is the inspiration of service if not fear? Yeah, the best jobs are the ones that you create. Doing the things that you love to do, doing the things that you embody. That is the best place where we are currently to create power. People who wear their hearts on their sleeves and out in society are tiresome and embarrassing. Is that what y'all really think of me? Their sincerity notwithstanding, it is hard to take them seriously. Those who cry in public may temporarily elicit sympathy, but sympathy soon turns to scorn and irritation at their self obsessiveness. They are crying to get attention. We feel and a malicious part of us wants to deny them the satisfaction. Oh, pay attention to that. Are we in society right now? Are we? Are you sure we're not? I mean, are you sure our interactions aren't society? Are you sure there aren't those among us who are crying for attention? Society exists wherever people exist. You get three people together, I'm pretty sure that's either an infestation or a society, one or the other. I am not like the technical master of knowing the answer to that question, though, so I don't know if we're in a society or an infestation. Good actors control themselves. They can play sincere and heartfelt, can affect a tear and a compassionate look at will, but they don't have to feel it. They externalize emotion in a form that others can understand. Method acting is fatal in the real world. No ruler or leader could possibly play the part if all of the emotions he showed had to be real. Oh, dear God, that's true. I don't think anyone could exist in the world if all of the emotions they showed had to be real. We all lie to some extent. We all deceive. We all misdirect. This is, yeah, uh, this is very important. So learn self control. Adopt the plasticity of the actor who can mold his or her face to the emotion required. I'm sure we all do this to some level instinctively because we don't want to offend or hurt anybody. So I'm very certain like this is not something that really needs to be outwardly thought about. This is just something we do. However, there are some people who just like fail. I'm one of them. Fails miserably sometimes to think about like who I'm interacting with and like the type of demeanor I need to take. And sometimes I'm just way over the top, and people are like, "Oh, you're a fucking asshole." It's like, my bad. I forgot I'm not talking to the people I normally talk to. It is what it is, and that's kind of the whole point. The second step in the process of self-creation is a variation on the George Sand strategy, the creation of a memorable character, one that compels attention, that stands out above the other players on the stage. This was the game Abraham Lincoln played. The homespun, common countryman he knew was a kind of president that America had never had but would delight in electing. Although many of these qualities came naturally to him, he played them up. The hat and the clothes, the beard. No president before him had worn a beard. Lincoln was also the first president to use photographs to spread his image, helping to create the icon of the homespun president. Good drama, however, needs more than an interesting appearance or a single stand-out moment. Drama takes place over time. It is an unfolding event. Rhythm and timing are critical. One of the most important elements in rhythm of drama is suspense. Houdini, for instance, could sometimes complete his escape acts in seconds, but he drew them out to minutes to make the audience sweat. And why wouldn't you? You definitely want that anticipation. I'm not getting into this right now, but I may or may not have heard the same thing. That's totally besides the point. It's irrelevant to the story. The key to keeping the audience on their edge of their seats is letting events unfold slowly, then speeding them up at the right moment, according to a pattern and tempo that you control. Great rulers from Napoleon to Mao Zedong, okay, these guys have used theatrical timing to surprise and divert their public. Franklin Delano Roosevelt understood the importance of staging political events in a perfect order and rhythm. You know what? I'm just going to say this. Fuck Napoleon. Fuck Mao Zedong. Fuck FDR. This is why you never trust a fucking politician, because all these great and influential leaders ended up being giant pieces of shit. I'm not going to say so much on Napoleon's half, but we all know what Mao did, and we all know who FDR was. Let's not pretend that we don't. Whole problem. At the time of his 1932 presidential election, the United States was in the midst of a dire economic crisis. Banks were failing at an alarming rate, and they should have failed. Shortly after winning the election, Roosevelt went into a kind of retreat. He said nothing about his plans or his cabinet appointments. He even refused to meet the sitting president, Herbert Hoover, to discuss the transition. By the time of Roosevelt's inauguration, the country was in a state of high anxiety. In his inaugural address, Roosevelt shifted gears. He made a powerful speech, making it clear that he intended to lead the country in a completely new direction. Hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. FDR is probably second on this list, and then Napoleon third. But here he is planning to lead the country in an entirely new direction. I mean, not the exact same direction Woodrow Wilson led us in, but the exact same direction Woodrow Wilson led us in. Sweeping away the timid gestures of his predecessors, from then on the pace of his speeches and public decisions, cabinet appointments, bold legislation, unfolded at an incredibly rapid rate. The period after the inauguration became known as the 100 Days, and its success in altering the country's mood partly stemmed from Roosevelt's clever pacing and use of dramatic contrast. He held his audience in suspense, then hit them with a series of bold gestures that seemed all the more momentous because they came from nowhere. Oh, they came from somewhere. You just thought they came out of nowhere. You must learn to orchestrate events in a similar manner, never revealing all your cards at once, but unfolding them in a way that heightens their dramatic effect. Fuck that. I mean, it's hard to find a more dangerous and devastating dictator in history of the world that I'm aware of than Mao Zedong. It really is. However, he was extremely powerful. That's how he was managed to do so much damage. Him, Stalin, Hitler, all of these people, extremely powerful and influential. Joe Biden, powerful and influential, extremely damaging to society. No, not really, but we're not in the point where society's at its peak. We've been falling for a while. This is just the death rattles of what we used to know as society at this point. Maybe, who knows? Societies rise and fall all the time. We'll see what happens. Besides covering a multitude of sins, good drama can also confuse and deceive your enemy. During War II, the German playwright Bertolt Brecht worked in Hollywood as a screenwriter. After the war, he was called before the House Committee on Un-American Activities for his supposed communist sympathies. Other writers who had been called to testify planned to humiliate the committee members with an angry, emotional stand. Brecht was wiser. He would play the committee like a violin, charming them while fooling them as well. He carefully rehearsed his responses and brought along some props, notably a cigar on which he puffed away, knowing the head of the committee liked cigars. And indeed, he proceeded to beguile the committee with a well-crafted responses that were ambiguous, funny, and double-edged. Instead of an angry, heartfelt tirade, he ran circles around them with a staged production, and they let him off scot-free. Easy peasy. We're out of this sheezy. Other dramatic effects for your repertoire include the beau geste, an action at a climactic moment that symbolizes your triumph. I'm gonna need to look that fucking Latin word up. Beau geste, uh, symbolizes your triumph or your boldness. Caesar's dramatic crossing of the Rubicon was a beau geste, a move that dazzled the soldiers and gave him heroic proportions. You must also appreciate the importance of stage entrances and exits. When Cleopatra first met Caesar in Egypt, she arrived rolled up in a carpet, which she arranged to have unfurled at his feet. I never do that. Whew, that's a statement, though. Damn, is that ever a statement? I am not even sure what to say about that statement. Did not work out so well, no. It really didn't, but not much worked out well for Caesar in the long run anyway. George Washington twice left power with flourish and fanfare, first as a general, then as a president who refused to sit for a third term. Yeah, he set the precedent, showing he knew how to make the moment count dramatically and symbolically, and his symbolism stands to this day. Your own entrances and exits should be crafted and planned as carefully. Remember that overacting can be counterproductive. This is another way of spending too much effort trying to attract attention. The actor Richard Burton discovered early in his career that standing totally still on stage, he drew attention to himself and away from the other actors. It is less what you do that matters, clearly, than how you do it. Your gracefulness and imposing stillness on the social stage count for more than overdoing your part and moving around too much. Ooh, bourgeois. Bourgeois. Noble and generous act. Yeah. I figured out what the meaning was. The pronunciation. Bourgeois. Okay, so that's a little simpler than I was putting a little more French pronunciation on it. Shoot me for that, please. At some point in time, not today. Okay, so this is saying a lot. The sometimes just standing out by the stillness and comfortableness of your actions versus being too fidgety, moving around too much. Drawing attention in that manner is not going to draw positive attention, but being very definitive in the things you do will draw the right kind of attention, I believe, is the point here. I don't know. Y'all might know better than me. I have a tendency to tread over the top, so being one to fall back is not really where my strengths lie. Finally, learn to play many roles, to be whatever the moment requires. The very last law we just covered was about playing the perfect courtier, and that law basically said the exact same thing as this is saying right here. Adapt to what your situation is, know your damn audience. Like, so many of the laws hark back to this exact same concept and philosophy that it bears repeating. Be whatever the moment requires. Adapt your mask to the situation. Be protean in the faces you wear. Bismarck played this game to perfection. To a liberal, he was a liberal. To a hawk, he was a hawk. He could not be grasped, and what cannot be grasped cannot be consumed. Image. The Greek sea god Proteus. His power came from his ability to change shape at will, to be whatever the moment required. When Menelaus, brother of Agamemnon, tried to seize him, Proteus transformed himself into a lion, then a serpent, then a panther, a boar, running water, and finally a leafy tree. Interesting. I'm not sure I'm familiar with the Greek myth of Proteus. Authority. Know how to be all things to all men. Well, that's not asking a lot at all. A discreet Proteus, a scholar among scholars, a saint among saints, that is the art of winning over everyone, for like attracts like. Take note of temperaments and adapt yourself to that of each person you meet. Follow the lead of the serious and jovial in turn, changing your mood discreetly. My man, Baltasar Gracian. That guy. Whew. Nailing it with all the fucking. The Wonder Twins? I'm confused. I might just not know enough about all this shit. That might just be a problem. Everybody understand the keys to power? Being able to adapt the mask you wear to the audience that you face. Being able to make yourself stand out while not being fucking weird about it. It seems really fucking simple. It's hard to fucking do because a lot of people are going to just think you're fucking weird if you're standing out. The herd recognizes itself. Those who stand out from among the herd does seem to reject these days. It's kind of different. You do not know the Wonder Twins? I probably do somewhere in the depths of the reaches of my mind. I may not, but it doesn't seem familiar to me right now in this context. It's not ringing immediate bells or alarms, is what I'm getting at. Did everybody fall asleep understanding the keys to power? Because I think Frog's the only one left here. I'm gonna try to figure out what the fuck he's getting at about the Wonder Twins. In the shape of a bucket in the form of water. Claire! Very late, will rewind. I mean, so much for the alarm. It's all good. It's good to see you. The doing it without being a weirdo, that's the rub. I mean, yeah, because in order to stand out, you have to be different from the herd. And in order to be different from the herd, you are going to be foreign to them, and that's going to be weird. So you have to find a way to subtly make yourself stand out without over presenting in that regard. I'm sorry I didn't send you some dynamite, but I didn't know you would need it. Don't worry, you only missed one of the more important laws about adapting to your surroundings. I mean, seems to be a common theme of just like being able to make yourself stand out while at the same time making yourself relatable to all the people you're trying to stand out to. It's a huge damn balancing act and it seems really ridiculous. Anybody like have any theories on the reversal of like reinventing yourself, like why you would want to remain consistent across like the interactions of acting with everybody? It seems like a noble pursuit, right? To not have to act. I think everybody would want everybody to just be themselves, right? Like I think that's how I feel about it. The Ready talked about changing shape and transform. The reading. Yeah, that. Seems like a lot of work to act. I mean, it's not really a lot of work to act, though. Think about this, Cat Ninja, because we talk relatively frequently. Uh, your interactions with me and your interactions with, like, say, your mom and your family, they're not the same. But it doesn't require you a lot of work to adapt to each different dynamic. It's almost natural. Like if we're conscious of it, we can master it, but you're going to do these adaptations to every discussion naturally and instinctively. Like I don't have the type same conversations. I don't have the same conversations with like a Shiloh mania as I have with a cool frog or with a Claire view or with a cat ninja. Like I instinctively, it's not really acting, it's just it's adapting the parts of me that facilitate the interactions while still maintaining who I am. Like a steady core for consistency and integrity, like what everyone can count on about you. Sometimes being yourself can still be too much for some. Who are you talking to, Cool Frog? Like, we're literally in Darth Sidious's chat, and I have been way too much for a lot. We are the same, but different depending on where we are. I agree, adaptability is not acting, but it is acting. It is more relating and it is often needed for successful in most endeavors. And it is acting because it is taking away from your truest you and adapting you to like you're having to wear some level of a mask in order to have a relatable reaction with somebody else. Because if I were to just like be 1,000% me 100% of the time, I probably wouldn't be able to relate with most people. But because I can go ahead and realize that like most people aren't going to relate with that, I can couch a lot of that. I don't always do it. Mutable characteristic. Some people can only be one dimensional. Exactly, Shiloh Main, and that is a beautiful assessment. You have to be able to like turn some shit on and off. I tone down a lot of the way that I interact when I'm here doing a YouTube stream, mostly for the YouTube commanders. I don't want to draw the ire of the authority. I'm a little different when I'm doing stuff on other platforms. I'm a little bit less fucks given because I'm aware. It is trusting what you can say without scaring other people off. I mean, there's a lot to it. But you want to know the truth about the reversal of recreating yourself? Does is anybody interested? Because we just hit the 2 hour mark, and I do not think anyone can be 100% their total self at all times. It is against our nature to be that vulnerable, to be honest. Claire, thank you. Thank you. You have just segued me into. I do not think anyone can be 100% their total self at all times. It is against our nature to be that vulnerable. Let me tell you about the reversal to the law of recreating yourself. Reversal. There can really be no reversal to this critical law. Bad theater is bad theater. Even appearing natural requires art. In other words, acting. Bad acting only creates embarrassment. Of course, you should not be too dramatic. Avoid the histrionic gesture. But that is simply bad theater anyway, since it violates centuries old dramatic laws against overacting. In essence, there is no reversal to this law. And that actually nails back to what Claire said about being able to be 100% your total self at all times. That's bad theater. You have to adapt your theatrical approach to every different interaction. Like my interaction with all of you right now is also different than my interaction would be one on one with any single one of you. And all those interactions would be different as well. And I would adapt myself accordingly to the person I'm interacting with. Like I said, I'm not going to have the same type of interactions with a Clairview that I'm going to have with a Cool Frog. I'm not going to have the same type of interactions with a Shallow Mania as I'm going to have with either of the aforementioned people. That's just not going to happen. And none of you do either. But being cognizant of that fact and being able to maximize being able to act accordingly to the situation with you is going to be the thing that makes this law irreversible because nobody wants bad theater with an audience. If you're going to perform any kind of role, you inevitably aspire to good theater, thus being completely unable to reverse this law. Make a note that Law 25 is on that short list of irreversible laws because the irreversible laws is going to be something that I want to go over at some point, probably once this is all over and I've moved on to something else. I eventually want to come back to the irreversible laws because they are probably the most important ones to really know this book. 19 is one of them, 25 is one of them. There's a couple of other ones that have come up so far. I'll go back and make sure I note every single one of them. But that was Law 25, the irreversible law of being able to recreate yourself, sometimes in full, sometimes on the fly, sometimes in the moment. And it seems to be a lot of the laws that seem to be irreversible revolve around being adaptable. And I think there's a thread to this. And it's more important to me now than it was when I first read this book. So I think it's something that bears some thought and some discussion. I don't know. What did y'all think? Are y'all ready to drop what you thought of yourself before you got here and go ahead and embrace a new you going forward? Have you all recreated yourself? I imagine most of you are still mostly pretty much the same, though you have this little nugget in your head. And hopefully, in your interactions, at least for the next day or two while it's still fresh in your head, you contemplate the fact that you have a role in that interaction, which makes you an actor in that regard. Like, I'm not gonna say you're gonna get it right off the rip, but you could probably take your natural situation in there and find a way to like optimize it a little better, get a little bit more pleasant of an interaction or a little bit more favorable, and really make this law work for you. And I think that would be Absolutely stellar. So I'm glad we did this one on a Friday when I was good and alert and ready to do it. Sometimes when I do these at 8 o'clock at night, I'm already like really, really stoned and stuff, and I do less actual thinking about the law and just more trying to get through it and interact with the chat a bit. But I really like to think about it and talk to the chat. And I'm glad for these little Friday engagements because they help me just. This law was not a 2 hour law at all, but there was way more hanging out in the stream going on, and I was happy to have it. I think that renewal and recreation, I'm assuming, not recreation, because this is not a recreational stream. This stream is for educational purposes. Please law responsibly. But renewal and recreation is essential in life. It is also a feminine characteristic and a good balancing quality. Well, all things in time, renewal, destruction, and recreation are in tune balanced. I don't necessarily think that's a feminine characteristic. I think creation is not necessarily a feminine characteristic. Destruction is more of a masculine characteristic, and that is why that's a good balancing quality because renewal is destruction, and that is naturally more of a masculine thing. But I do appreciate the input, and I'm with you most of the way. But thank you all for coming. Everyone who did. Hopefully, everyone hit the like button when they came in. Uh, Speaking of this, Rumble with Darthidius. So now that we're done with the 48 Laws of Power, I don't know how many people still listening are big fans of my taste in music. Eight of my favorite musical content creators just dropped songs within the last few days, and it leads me to think that there is a pending necessity of the Saturday morning cartoons that I do on Rumble releases. So if anyone is interested in off the beaten path hip hop music, I'm probably, don't quote me, but most likely going to be doing a Saturday stream on Rumble to go ahead and showcase my favorite musical artists doing their most recent releases. So if you don't follow me on Rumble, Juju dropped my link. Go check it out. Like some of these are really good. I've listened to a few of them already. A few of them I have not gotten to listen to, but it's an acquired taste. Like it's very new underground hip hop. A lot of it's very lyrical, but a lot of it's very experimental. And I hate the word progressive, but it is progressive in what we consider rap music. So that's on the table for everybody. Uh, I usually do the Saturday morning cartoons really early, like 10 a.m. Eastern. So what is that? 9 Central, 7 your time, Shalomania. And I don't expect you to be up at 7 in the morning for a radio stream. If I can mix in a whole bunch of other shit into it, I can make this one a longer stream. But yeah, 7 in the morning is really, really early. 10 a.m. is really early for me to be doing stream, but I do want to do, yeah, I am kind of like, I'm up at 5 in the morning, so by 10, ready to do a damn stream. And by 8 o'clock at night, I'm ready to go to bed and not do a stream. So I should maybe start thinking about doing the Monday and Wednesdays show earlier, just so, it's the Sabbath. Got you. Got you. I might do a Sunday night smoke out instead of a Saturday morning cartoons. I haven't decided because I like the Sunday night smokeout radio almost as much as I like the Saturday morning cartoons radio. But I might not be able to wait. So if I do save it for Sunday, it'll be specifically to catch Shallowmania. Why not do both? Because it would be essentially repeating the same stream, and I don't like that idea. I could vary it up enough to make them different, I guess. I really didn't prepare to do a Saturday and Sunday Rumble radio show. Cartoons, yeah, that's me trying to be clever. But I mean, I could probably do it. It's just it's a lot, and I really wasn't prepared for it. I'll think about it. I'll actually go ahead and maybe talk to a few people, see if I can't get some help. Because if I'm gonna do two of those, I'm gonna need some assistance. But anyway, regarding if anyone actually made it all the way here on the replay crew, the comment section always open for any thoughts, questions, concerns, emotional outbursts, uh, matters of statement, uh, suits against me, torts and references. I'm open to all communications in the comment section, and if you have a question, I likely have at least an attempt at a response. So leave your questions and comments in the comment section below. And for everybody who does not do the Rumble scene and won't see me for any of the radio streams that may happen this weekend, Monday, 8 p.m., Law 26. It seems like it's going to be keep your hands clean. So we may dub this the OJ law. Keep your hands clean. And I hope to see all of you on Rumble if I show up there. Like I said, no promises. I know I'm going to do one of these days. I'm not going to guarantee you whether I do Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to have to I may do both, but I'm going to do at least one of them. I hope to see you all back here Monday night for the OJ Simpson law about keeping your hands clean. Keep yourself out of the drama, and I will catch you all then. Thank you all for coming. Have a amazing weekend if I don't see you, and I will catch you all in the next one. Hideous out. Peace.